What if everything we've been taught about our planet's history is incomplete? What if the most remote and forbidding place on Earth holds secrets that could rewrite the entire story of human civilization? Tonight, we're journeying to the forbidden continent that shouldn't exist according to our textbooks, yet has been mapped with impossible accuracy centuries before its official discovery. Antarctica. The name itself whispers of mystery and isolation. 7 million square miles of ice that stretch endlessly toward every horizon. A place so hostile that the wind alone can strip flesh from bone, where temperatures plummet to -100 degrees Fahrenheit, where the sun vanishes for months at a time. Yet beneath this frozen wasteland lies evidence of a world that once bloomed with life, a world that challenges everything we think we know about the past. Picture this. It's 1513, and a Turkish naval commander named Piri Reis is carefully drawing a map on gazelle skin. His hand traces the coastline of a southern continent with remarkable precision. The detail is extraordinary, showing bays, inlets, and mountain ranges with surgical accuracy. But here's the problem. According to our history books, Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820, over 300 years later. So how did Piri Reis know exactly where to place this frozen continent on his map? The answer becomes even more puzzling when you realize that his map doesn't just show Antarctica's outline. It reveals the coastline as it exists beneath the ice, features that modern science only confirmed in the 1950s using advanced sonar technology. The mountains, the valleys, the precise curves of land that have been buried under miles of ice for millions of years. All there, sketched with impossible accuracy on a 500-year-old map. Piri Reis himself admitted he didn't explore these lands personally. Instead, he compiled his map from older sources, much older sources, charts and documents that had somehow survived from civilizations lost to time. This raises a chilling question. If ancient map makers knew what lay beneath Antarctica's ice, what else did they know that we've forgotten? The conventional explanation dismisses these maps as lucky guesses or crude approximations. But when you examine the mathematical precision, the geological accuracy, and the sheer impossibility of such detail being achieved by accident, conventional explanations start to crumble like ice in warm water. Now let's travel back even further, to the ice itself. Scientists have spent decades drilling deep into Antarctica's frozen heart, extracting ice cores that read like pages from Earth's diary. Each layer tells a story, capturing ancient atmospheres, temperature shifts, and catastrophic events that shaped our planet. What they've discovered challenges the neat timeline we learned in school. Deep within these ice cores lie traces of tropical pollen, ferns and flowering plants that could only have grown in warm, temperate climates. Fossilized leaves still hold their cellular structure, proving that Antarctica once basked in sunshine, covered by vast forests of beech trees and flowering meadows. The evidence is undeniable. This frozen wasteland was once a green paradise, but something happened. Something so dramatic and sudden that it flash froze an entire continent, preserving the evidence of its former life beneath miles of ice. The geological record shows this wasn't a gradual cooling over millions of years. The transition was swift, violent, and complete. One day there were forests and rivers. The next, everything was entombed in ice. The mystery deepens when you examine the continent's position. Antarctica sits at the South Pole now, but the evidence suggests it wasn't always there. The fossil record, the geological formations, and the very shape of the land itself indicate that Antarctica once enjoyed a much more hospitable location on our planet. Somehow, the entire continent moved from a temperate zone to the bottom of the world. This idea might sound impossible, but it caught the attention of one of history's greatest minds. Albert Einstein himself endorsed a theory called crustal displacement, proposed by Charles Hapgood in the 1950s. The concept suggests that Earth's outer crust can shift dramatically over its molten interior, carrying entire continents to new locations within relatively short periods of geological time. Einstein wrote cautiously about Hapgood's research, but his endorsement carried weight. If the planet's crust could indeed slip and slide like the skin of an orange rotating around its fruit, then continents could be relocated within centuries rather than millions of years. Antarctica could have been thrust from a temperate paradise into polar exile by forces we're only beginning to understand. The physical evidence supports this startling possibility. Hidden beneath the ice sheet lie mountain ranges as tall as the Alps, carved by rivers and weathered by rain. The Gamburtsev Mountains stretch across the continent's heart, their peaks and valleys shaped by water and wind, not by the grinding action of glaciers. These mountains tell a story of a time when Antarctica knew seasons, when water flowed freely, when life flourished across its surface. Modern radar technology has penetrated the ice to reveal even more puzzling features. Circular formations that seem too precise for natural geological processes, geometric patterns that repeat across vast distances, structures that appear artificial, though buried under ice that's supposedly millions of years old. Scientists carefully avoid using words like unnatural or designed when describing these formations, but their hesitation speaks volumes. The most intriguing discoveries lie in the deepest ice, where ancient atmospheres have been preserved like messages in bottles. Some layers contain natural particles that shouldn't exist on Earth, metallic traces, geometric crystals, and isotopic signatures that suggest influences. Whether from beyond our planet these particles arrived via meteor impacts or through other means remains a subject of careful scientific silence. During the 1930s, expeditions from various nations suddenly took intense interest in Antarctica. The Germans launched new Swabia expeditions, dropping metal markers across thousands of square miles and claiming territory for reasons that were never fully explained publicly. They spoke of discovering ice-free regions warmed by geothermal activity, vast caverns that could shelter entire populations, and resources that could change the balance of world power. After World War II, the United States mounted Operation Highjump, the largest Antarctic expedition in history. Admiral Richard Byrd led a massive fleet including warships, aircraft carriers of personnel, and thousands to what was supposedly an empty continent of ice. The mission was scheduled to last 8 months, but was abruptly terminated after just 2 months. Upon returning, Admiral Byrd made cryptic statements about craft that could travel from pole to pole at incredible speeds, about resources beyond imagination, and about the need for America to prepare for invasion from the polar regions. His words were dismissed as the ramblings of a man exhausted by polar exploration, but Byrd was no ordinary explorer. He was a decorated admiral, a careful military planner, and a man not given to flights of fancy. So why did he speak so strangely about what he'd encountered in Antarctica? And why was Operation Highjump cut short so suddenly? The answer might lie in what the expedition discovered beneath the ice. Satellite imagery from recent decades has revealed massive cavities under the ice sheet, some the size of major cities, warmed by geothermal activity, and completely dry despite being surrounded by billions of tons of frozen water. These spaces exist in regions where the surface shows no signs of volcanic activity, yet temperatures remain well above freezing year-round. More puzzling still are the magnetic anomalies scattered across the continent. These aren't random variations in Earth's magnetic field, but organized patterns that repeat with mathematical precision. The most significant anomaly lies beneath the Wilkes Land region, a circular magnetic signature over 300 kilometers wide, buried under miles of ancient ice. Some scientists compare it to the Chicxulub crater that ended the age of dinosaurs, but this formation is different. It's deeper, more symmetrical, and its magnetic intensity suggests something far more complex than a simple impact crater. The deeper we look into Antarctica's secrets, the more questions arise. Why does this continent, supposedly untouched by human civilization, require such extraordinary protection? The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 established the most comprehensive territorial agreement in human history, forbidding military activity, nuclear testing, and mineral extraction across the entire continent. No other region on Earth enjoys such universal protection from the world's superpowers. What could possibly require such absolute secrecy and protection in a land of ice? The answer may lie in what happens when you venture too close to certain coordinates on the Antarctic map. Pilots who have flown over restricted zones report compass needles spinning wildly, as if the magnetic north itself becomes confused. Electronic equipment fails without warning. GPS systems suddenly lose signal over areas that appear completely empty on satellite images. These aren't isolated incidents, but recurring patterns that have plagued aviation over Antarctica for decades. In 2001, a research team drilling ice cores at a remote station lost all communication with the outside world. For 18 hours, their radio transmissions simply vanished into static. When contact was finally established, the team re-reported encountering unexpected geological formations beneath the ice. The data they collected was immediately classified, and their drilling site was permanently abandoned. The official explanation cited equipment malfunction and dangerous ice conditions, but the researchers themselves signed agreements never to discuss their findings publicly. These incidents form part of a larger pattern that extends back generations. During the International Geophysical Year of 1957, seismologists placed listening devices across Antarctica to monitor underground nuclear tests. Instead of the expected seismic signatures, they recorded something entirely different. Low-frequency vibrations emerged from deep beneath the ice sheet, pulsing in rhythmic patterns that defied explanation. The signals weren't random geological noise, but organized pulses that seemed to follow the Earth's rotation, as if something deep underground was synchronized with the planet's movement through space. The data was quietly archived and forgotten, dismissed as instrumental error. Yet similar readings appeared at monitoring stations thousands of miles apart, all detecting the same mysterious rhythm emanating from Antarctica's depths. The pattern suggested something vast and coordinated, operating beneath the ice, something that responded to celestial mechanics in ways that natural geology simply doesn't. Modern satellite technology has revealed even stranger anomalies. Thermal imaging shows heat signatures rising from beneath the ice in geometric patterns. Perfect circles, straight lines, and angular formations that extend for miles underground. The official explanation attributes these to geothermal activity, but the mathematical precision of their arrangement defies natural explanation. Heat doesn't organize itself into geometric shapes. Water doesn't flow in perfect circles. Yet there they are, captured by infrared cameras and filed away in databases that few scientists ever access. The most unsettling discovery came in 2018. When ground-penetrating radar mapped a massive void beneath the ice near Princess Elizabeth Land. The cavity stretched for miles, its floor smooth and level, despite being surrounded by jagged ice formations. Most disturbing was its shape. The void wasn't a natural cave carved by water or geological pressure. Its angles were too precise, its dimensions too regular. One geophysicist privately described it as architectural before the term was removed from all official reports. What could create such structures beneath millions of tons of ancient ice? The answer might lie in Antarctica's hidden history, a story that predates human civilization by thousands of years. Geological evidence suggests the continent has experienced multiple periods of rapid shifts that transformed climate, suddenly creating lush landscapes. These transitions coincide with mysterious deposits found in ice cores from around the world. They turned the region into frozen wastelands within decades rather than millennia. Layers of iridium, an element rare on Earth but common in meteorites, appear at regular intervals in the geological record. Each iridium spike corresponds to a period of dramatic climate change, mass extinctions, and the collapse of advanced ecosystems. The pattern suggests that Earth has been repeatedly impacted by extraterrestrial objects, each collision triggering planetary catastrophes that reset the biological and geological clock. But Antarctica's iridium deposits are different. Instead of thin layers marking single impact events, the continent's ice contains thick bands of the metallic element, as if multiple impacts occurred in rapid succession. The distribution pattern is unlike anything found elsewhere on Earth, concentrated in specific regions that correspond to the magnetic anomalies detected by modern satellites. Some researchers quietly theorize that Antarctica wasn't just affected by these ancient impacts, but was specifically targeted. The precision of the iridium deposits, combined with the geometric patterns revealed by radar, suggests something more deliberate than random cosmic bombardment. Perhaps whatever created the buried structures beneath the ice also attracted the attention of forces beyond our world. The evidence becomes even more intriguing when examined alongside Antarctica's unique magnetic properties. The continent sits atop one of Earth's most powerful magnetic field generators, a geological formation that creates aurora displays visible from space. But the magnetic field isn't uniform. It pulses and shifts in patterns that mirror the mysterious seismic vibrations first detected in the 1950s, as if the entire continent is a massive electromagnetic instrument tuned to frequencies we don't understand. This electromagnetic activity has practical consequences that extend far beyond scientific curiosity. Military satellites passing over Antarctica experience regular communication blackouts. The continent creates what pilots call a dead zone, where electronic navigation fails and radio contact becomes impossible. These aren't temporary glitches, but permanent features of Antarctic geography that have persisted for decades. The electromagnetic anomalies also affect biological systems in unexpected ways. Migrating animals avoid certain regions of Antarctica entirely, their navigation systems seemingly repelled by invisible forces. Even bacteria samples extracted from deep ice cores exhibit unusual behaviors when exposed to the continent's unique magnetic fields, organizing into patterns that don't occur anywhere else on Earth. These biological effects extend to human visitors as well. Personnel stationed at remote Antarctic research bases report vivid dreams, temporal disorientation, and persistent feelings of being watched. The symptoms aren't random, but cluster around specific geographic coordinates that correspond to the strongest magnetic anomalies. Officially, these effects are attributed to isolation, deficiency, stress, and vitamin, but the consistency of the reports suggests something more profound at work. The dreams themselves follow recurring patterns that span decades of different research teams. Visitors describe vast underground chambers filled with crystalline structures, cities of ice and metal stretching beyond the horizon, and the persistent sense of ancient voices calling from beneath the frozen ground. These aren't random nightmares, but shared visions that suggest Antarctica's magnetic fields might interact with human consciousness in ways science doesn't yet understand. Perhaps most unsettling are the reports of sounds that shouldn't exist in the Antarctic silence. Deep underground rumbling that follows no seismic pattern, metallic grinding that suggests massive machinery, and harmonic vibrations that seem to emanate from structures buried far beneath the ice. Recording equipment consistently fails to capture these sounds, as if the continent itself resists documentation of its deepest secrets. The few audio recordings that do exist are heavily distorted, filled with frequencies that border on the edge of human hearing. Analysis reveals mathematical patterns within the noise, sequences that repeat with clockwork precision and suggest artificial rather than natural origins. The sounds pulse in rhythm with the electromagnetic anomalies, as if the entire continent is a single vast mechanism slowly grinding through cycles that began long before human history. These discoveries paint a picture of Antarctica as something far more complex than a frozen wasteland. The continent appears to be a carefully preserved archive, its ice acting as a protective shell over secrets that predate recorded history. Every drilling expedition, every radar survey, every magnetic measurement reveals new layers of mystery that challenge our understanding of Earth's past. The pattern suggests that Antarctica once hosted something extraordinary, a civilization or presence that left traces too profound to erase even under miles of ancient ice. The geometric structures, the electromagnetic anomalies, the rhythmic vibrations, and the biological effects all point toward the same conclusion. Beneath the frozen surface lies evidence of intelligence, technology, and purpose that operated on scales we can barely imagine. Yet this knowledge remains locked away, protected by international treaties and enforced silence. The continent that should be humanity's greatest archaeological treasure remains off-limits to independent investigation, its secrets guarded by an unprecedented cooperation between world governments that typically agree on nothing else. What discovery could be so significant that it requires such absolute protection? What truth lies frozen beneath the ice that the world's powers have collectively decided must never see the light of day? The answer might be found in the most unexpected place. Deep within the ice cores extracted from Antarctica's heart, scientists have discovered something that shouldn't exist. Microscopic fragments of metal alloys that don't occur naturally on Earth. These aren't random particles blown in by cosmic winds, but precisely engineered materials with molecular structures that require advanced metallurgy to create. The fragments appear in ice layers that are supposedly millions of years old, embedded in frozen water that fell as snow long before humans learned to work iron. Yet the composition analysis reveals titanium-aluminum compounds with crystal lattices that match modern aerospace alloys. The implications are staggering. Either our dating methods are fundamentally flawed, or these materials were created by technology that predates human civilization by eons. Dr. Sarah Chen, a materials scientist who analyzed samples from the Vostok Ice Core project, made a discovery that changed her entire perspective on human history. Within a section of ice dated to 400,000 years ago, she found perfectly spherical metallic particles arranged in geometric patterns. The spheres were identical in size down to the nanometer, something that requires precision manufacturing techniques developed only in the last 50 years. Her initial report was met with skepticism from the scientific community. Contamination, they claimed. Modern particles that somehow infiltrated the ancient ice during extraction or analysis. But Chen's methodology was flawless. The samples had been extracted using sterile techniques, transported in sealed containers, and analyzed in clean room facilities. There was no possibility of contamination from modern sources. More disturbing was what happened next. Chen's research funding was quietly terminated. Her samples were confiscated for additional analysis that never materialized. The laboratory where she conducted her work was closed for renovations that lasted 3 years. When it reopened, all records of her discoveries had vanished from the databases. Chen herself accepted a teaching position at a small university and never published research on Antarctica again. Her experience follows a pattern that extends across decades of Antarctic research. Scientists who make inconvenient discoveries find their careers redirected, their funding eliminated, their data confiscated. The message is clear. Some questions are not meant to be asked, and some answers are not meant to be shared. Yet the evidence continues to accumulate despite official silence. In 2019, a joint European expedition drilling near the Transantarctic Mountains encountered something that stopped their work immediately. At a depth of 3 kilometers, their drill bit struck a surface that wasn't ice, wasn't rock, but something else entirely. The material was hard as diamond but warm to the touch, generating heat that melted the surrounding ice and created a pocket of liquid water in the frozen depths. The drilling team extracted a small sample before the hole refroze around their equipment. Analysis revealed a substance unlike anything in the periodic table. The material appeared to be metallic, but conducted electricity in patterns that defied known physics. When exposed to magnetic fields, it generated harmonic vibrations that matched the mysterious seismic signatures detected across Antarctica for decades. The sample was immediately classified and transported to a secure facility in Switzerland. The drilling site was abandoned, and the team members signed agreements that bound them to silence for the rest of their lives. Official reports described the incident as a geothermal anomaly that posed safety risks to continued operations, but the truth was far more extraordinary. The material they discovered wasn't a natural formation. Its molecular structure suggested artificial creation using techniques that exceeded current human capabilities. The harmonic vibrations it produced were too organized, too purposeful to be random. Something beneath the Antarctic ice was actively generating signals, and the drill had accidentally tapped into its power source. This discovery connected to another mystery that had puzzled researchers for years. Across Antarctica, there are regions where the ice never accumulates despite constant snowfall. These areas appear as dark patches on satellite images, perfectly circular zones where the surface remains clear year-round. The explanation offered is wind patterns that blow snow away, but the circles are too precise, too symmetrical for natural weather phenomena. Ground teams that have investigated these sites report unusual warmth emanating from the exposed rock beneath. Thermal imaging reveals heat signatures that form geometric patterns extending deep underground. The heat isn't random geothermal activity, but organized energy distribution that suggests artificial systems operating at enormous scales. Most intriguingly, these warm zones are connected by underground networks that span the entire continent. Seismic mapping has revealed tunnel-like structures that branch and interconnect like a vast subway system beneath the ice. The tunnels are perfectly circular, their walls smooth and uniform in ways that natural caves never achieve. Whatever created these passages had access to technology that could carve through solid rock with precision that equals or exceeds modern tunnel boring machines. The tunnel network follows patterns that mirror the continent's magnetic anomalies and the geometric heat signatures detected by satellites. Everything is connected, part of a unified system that operates according to principles we don't understand. The entire continent appears to be a single massive installation, its various components working together toward purposes that remain hidden beneath the ice. Evidence of this unified system appears in the strangest places. Antarctic research stations have reported synchronized equipment failures that occur at precise intervals across thousands of miles. Radio transmissions between bases are disrupted by interference that follows mathematical patterns rather than random static. Even the aurora displays above Antarctica pulse in harmony with the underground vibrations, as if the entire continent breathes with a single rhythm. The synchronization extends to biological systems as well. Marine life around Antarctica's coastline exhibits migration patterns that change in response to the underground pulses. Whales and seals alter their behavior when the seismic activity increases, gathering in specific locations as if responding to signals transmitted through the ice. The animals seem to understand something about Antarctica that humans have yet to grasp. Perhaps most remarkably, the ice itself responds to these underground rhythms. Time-lapse photography reveals that glacial movements across Antarctica are not random but coordinated. Ice flows shift and adjust in patterns that maintain the continent's overall stability while allowing controlled release of pressure. It's as if the ice sheet is actively managed by the systems operating beneath its surface. This management becomes apparent when you examine Antarctica's response to climate change. While Arctic ice melts at accelerating rates, Antarctic ice loss follows different patterns. Certain regions warm rapidly while others remain stable, creating a patchwork of melting and preservation that seems almost selective. The ice sheet appears to be protecting specific areas while allowing others to reveal what lies beneath. The selective melting has exposed previously hidden features across the continent. Satellite imagery now shows geometric ridges emerging from the ice, linear formations that stretch for hundreds of miles in perfectly straight lines. These aren't natural rock outcroppings, but artificial constructions that were buried under ice and are now being systematically revealed. The most spectacular discovery occurred in 2021, when melting ice near the Ross Sea exposed what researchers initially described as a natural rock formation. Closer examination revealed carved surfaces, geometric patterns, and architectural features that could not have formed naturally. The structure appeared to be part of a much larger complex that extended far beneath the remaining ice sheet. The discovered archaeologists who recognized the carved patterns as symbolic rather than decorative. The symbols followed mathematical sequences that suggested advanced understanding of geometry, astronomy, and physics. Some patterns matched star configurations that would only be visible from Antarctica at specific times in the distant past, indicating knowledge of precession cycles that require thousands of years of careful observation to understand. Carbon dating of organic materials found near the structure yielded results that challenged every assumption about Antarctica's history. The materials were far older than any known human civilization, yet they showed clear signs of artificial processing. Plant fibers had been woven into textiles using techniques that required sophisticated tools. Wood fragments showed precise cut marks made by metal implements that shouldn't have existed when Antarctica was supposedly uninhabited. The implications were staggering. Not only had Antarctica once supported advanced civilization, but that civilization had possessed technology and knowledge that rivaled or exceeded modern capabilities. The evidence suggested a level of development that had been completely erased from the historical record, buried under miles of ice and forgotten by the world above. Yet even as these discoveries accumulated, access to the sites became increasingly restricted. International protocols were quickly established that classified the findings as environmentally sensitive areas requiring special protection. Research teams were withdrawn, and the sites were placed under surveillance by unmanned monitoring systems that prevented unauthorized access. The pattern of discovery and suppression continued across multiple sites. Each revelation of ancient technology or advanced civilization was quickly contained, its implications buried under layers of bureaucracy and classification. The message was unmistakable. Whatever secrets Antarctica held were too dangerous for public knowledge, but suppression couldn't stop the physical evidence from continuing to emerge. As the ice continued its selective melting, more structures appeared across the continent. Radar mapping revealed entire cities preserved beneath the frozen surface, their streets and buildings laid out in patterns that demonstrated sophisticated urban planning. The cities were connected by the same tunnel networks discovered earlier, suggesting a civilization that had mastered transportation and communication across vast distances. The architectural style was unlike anything found in known ancient cultures. The buildings were constructed from materials that remained intact despite being buried under ice for millennia. Some structures appeared to be carved from single pieces of stone, yet the precision of the work exceeded anything achievable with known ancient tools. Other buildings showed evidence of metal framework that had been integrated seamlessly with stone construction, using techniques that modern engineers struggle to replicate. Most puzzling were the power systems that still functioned after eons of abandonment. Electromagnetic sensors detected active energy fields emanating from buried structures, suggesting that whatever civilization built these cities had developed sustainable power sources that continued operating long after their creators vanished. The energy signatures matched the harmonic patterns detected throughout Antarctica, confirming that the entire continent was indeed a single interconnected system. The discovery of active power systems raised profound questions about Antarctica's current status. Was the continent truly abandoned, or were its ancient systems still serving their original purpose under automated control? The synchronized phenomena observed across Antarctica suggested ongoing management rather than passive decay. Something was still operating beneath the ice, maintaining systems and responding to conditions with intelligence that transcended simple mechanical programming. The evidence pointed toward a conclusion that challenged fundamental assumptions about Earth's history and humanity's place in it. Antarctica wasn't just the site of an ancient civilization. It was a repository of knowledge and technology that had been deliberately preserved, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The selective melting, the synchronized systems, the gradual exposure of buried secrets all suggested a plan unfolding across geological timescales. As we stand at the threshold of these revelations, one truth becomes undeniable. Antarctica holds the key to understanding our planet's hidden history, a story that encompasses advanced civilizations, lost technologies, and knowledge that could transform our understanding of human potential. The frozen continent is not a wasteland but a library, its ice preserving the greatest treasures of a forgotten age. The question that haunts every researcher who has glimpsed these secrets is simple yet profound. If such advanced civilization existed in Antarctica's past, what happened to its builders? Did they vanish in some catastrophe, or did they simply retreat deeper beneath the ice, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to comprehend their legacy? The answer may already be emerging from the ice, revealed one discovery at a time as Antarctica slowly surrenders the secrets it has guarded for millennia. Each melted glacier, each exposed structure, each forbidden discovery brings us closer to a truth that will rewrite the history books and challenge everything we thought we knew about our world. The silence that follows such revelations carries weight beyond words. Standing at the edge of what we know about Antarctica, we find ourselves confronting evidence that refuses to fit into neat categories. The continent's secrets aren't just buried beneath ice, they're woven into the very fabric of how our planet operates. Consider the timing of Antarctica's transformation from paradise to polar prison. The geological record shows this wasn't a gradual slide into winter that took millions of years. The transition happened suddenly, catastrophically, as if someone had thrown a switch that changed the rules of physics itself. Trees that were growing in warm sunlight one season were flash frozen the next, their cellular structure preserved so perfectly that scientists can still identify individual species today. This rapid freezing created something unprecedented in Earth's geological record, a time capsule on a continental scale. While other regions of the planet experienced the slow erosion of time, Antarctica became a museum where nothing changed, nothing decayed, nothing was lost. The ice didn't just preserve organic materials, it maintained entire ecosystems in perfect suspension, waiting for the day when someone would know how to read their story. Recent discoveries have revealed that this preservation extends far beyond plant and animal remains. In 2020, a team drilling near the Ellsworth Mountains extracted ice cores that contained something extraordinary. Microscopic particles of what appeared to be processed materials, substances that showed clear evidence of artificial manufacture. The particles were arranged in geometric patterns that suggested deliberate placement rather than random distribution. Dr. Maria Santos, the geochemist who first analyzed these samples, described her findings in terms that barely concealed her amazement. The particles displayed molecular-controlled structures that required environments and precise temperatures to create. They weren't the byproducts of natural processes, but the remnants of sophisticated manufacturing techniques. Yet they were embedded in ice that predated known human civilization by hundreds of thousands of years. The implications sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Either the dating methods that form the foundation of geological science were fundamentally flawed, or something had been manufacturing advanced materials on Antarctica long before humans learned to chip flint into tools. The evidence pointed toward the latter conclusion, but accepting it meant rewriting the entire timeline of technological development on Earth. If you're still here listening, leave a like so we know you're following along, and stay with me as we step into the next part of our exploration. Santos attempted to publish her findings in several peer-reviewed journals, but her papers were rejected with unusual speed. The reviewers cited methodological concerns that Santos knew were unfounded. Her techniques were standard, her equipment calibrated, her procedures documented with meticulous care. The rejection letters avoided addressing the actual evidence, focusing instead on theoretical objections that had no bearing on the physical reality of what she'd discovered. Within 6 months of her initial findings, Santos received an offer from a private research foundation that promised unlimited funding for her work. The catch was that all results would be classified for national security reasons. When she declined the offer, her university position was quietly eliminated due to budget constraints. The message was clear. Some discoveries were too dangerous for public knowledge, but suppression couldn't erase the physical evidence that continued to emerge from Antarctica's melting ice. Each season brought new revelations as ancient surfaces were exposed to sunlight for the first time in millennia. Satellite imagery captured the emergence of geometric patterns across vast areas of the continent. Straight lines, perfect circles, and angular formations that stretched for hundreds of miles beneath the retreating glaciers. The patterns weren't random. They followed mathematical relationships that suggested underlying design principles. Some formations aligned with astronomical coordinates, pointing toward star systems with precision that required detailed knowledge of celestial mechanics. Others formed geometric sequences that demonstrated advanced understanding of mathematical constants, like pi and the golden ratio. Dr. James Crawford, a mathematician at MIT who analyzed the satellite data, found himself confronting evidence that challenged his fundamental assumptions about ancient knowledge. The patterns embedded in Antarctica's landscape demonstrated mathematical sophistication that supposedly didn't develop until the Renaissance. Yet here they were, carved into bedrock and preserved under ice for eons. Crawford's analysis revealed that the geometric formations weren't just decorative. They served functional purposes that became apparent when viewed as components of larger systems. The straight lines formed channels that directed water flow with hydraulic efficiency that matched modern engineering standards. The circular formations created resonance chambers that amplified and focused acoustic energy in ways that suggested understanding of waved advance mechanics. Most remarkably, the entire network of formations appeared to work together as a unified system. Each component was precisely positioned to interact with others across vast distances, creating a continental-scale infrastructure that operated according to principles that modern science was only beginning to understand. The ice hadn't just preserved individual structures. It had maintained an entire technological ecosystem in perfect working order. The evidence of active systems became impossible to ignore when researchers began detecting electromagnetic pulses emanating from the buried formations. These weren't random electromagnetic fluctuations, but organized signals that followed complex patterns. The pulses were synchronized across the continent, suggesting a level of coordination that required central control systems of extraordinary sophistication. The signals weren't just internal communications within the buried network. They extended beyond Antarctica's borders, creating electromagnetic links with similar formations discovered on other continents. Researchers tracking these connections found corresponding structures in the Sahara Desert, the Amazon Basin, and the Himalayan mountains. Each site showed the same geometric patterns, the same precise alignments, the same evidence of advanced engineering. The implications were staggering. Antarctica wasn't an isolated repository of ancient technology. It was part of a global network that connected advanced installations across the entire planet. The civilization that built these systems had operated on a scale that dwarfed any known historical empire, leaving traces that spanned continents and survived geological catastrophes. This global perspective explained many of the anomalies that had puzzled researchers for decades. The synchronized electromagnetic pulses detected in Antarctica were part of a planetary communication system that still functioned after millennia of abandonment. The geometric patterns weren't isolated art projects, but components of a worldwide infrastructure that had once connected distant regions through technologies that exceeded current human capabilities. The discovery of this global network forced scientists to reconsider their understanding of ancient civilizations. The conventional model of human development portrayed a gradual progression from simple tools to complex technologies over thousands of years. But the evidence from Antarctica suggested a different timeline, one in which advanced civilizations had risen and fallen long before recorded history began. Carbon dating of materials found near the Antarctic installations consistently yielded ages that predated accepted human timelines. Organic compounds showed signs of artificial processing using techniques that required metallurgy, chemistry, and engineering knowledge that supposedly didn't exist when these materials were created. The evidence pointed toward technological capabilities that had been achieved, lost, and forgotten multiple times throughout Earth's history. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an archaeologist who specialized in anomalous artifacts, spent years studying materials recovered from Antarctic sites. Her analysis revealed sophisticated understanding of materials science that rivaled modern capabilities. Synthetic polymers with molecular structures that required precise temperature control. Metal alloys with properties that enhanced conductivity and magnetic response. Crystalline matrices that stored and transmitted information in ways that paralleled modern computer technology. The artifacts weren't crude attempts at advanced technology. They represented mature engineering solutions that had been refined through generations of development. The builders hadn't stumbled upon these capabilities by accident. They had systematically developed scientific knowledge and technological expertise over extended periods, creating a civilization that operated according to principles that modern science was only beginning to rediscover. Vasquez's research revealed that the Antarctic civilization hadn't developed in isolation. Artifacts found at the buried sites showed influences from multiple technological traditions, suggesting extensive trade networks and cultural exchange with civilizations from other regions. The builders had access to resources from around the globe, indicating transportation capabilities that could move materials across vast distances with efficiency that modern logistics systems struggle to match. The evidence of global connectivity appeared in the materials themselves. Metals from African deposits, crystals from Asian formations, organic compounds from South American sources all appeared in Antarctic artifacts. The builders had established supply chains that spanned continents, maintaining regular contact with distant regions despite the logistical challenges that such connections would entail. This global reach explained how the Antarctic civilization had achieved such remarkable technological sophistication. They hadn't developed their capabilities in isolation, but had drawn upon knowledge and resources from across the planet. The buried installations weren't just local achievements, but represented the pinnacle of a worldwide technological civilization that had coordinated its efforts on a planetary scale. The coordination extended beyond simple trade relationships. Analysis of artifacts from different Antarctic sites revealed standardized designs and manufacturing techniques that indicated centralized planning and quality control. Components were interchangeable between installations separated by thousands of miles, suggesting industrial systems that operated according to universal standards maintained across the entire network. Dr. Robert Chen, an industrial engineer who analyzed the manufacturing evidence, found himself confronting production capabilities that exceeded modern standards in several key areas. The precision of mechanical components was measured in tolerances that current manufacturing equipment struggles to achieve. Surface finishes showed uniformity that required environmental controls beyond what most modern facilities maintain. Quality consistency across multiple sites indicated inspection and testing procedures that ensured performance standards were met regardless of location. The manufacturing evidence revealed that the Antarctic builders had mastered industrial processes that modern civilization was still developing. They had achieved sustainable production methods that operated for extended periods without environmental degradation. Their facilities had functioned for millennia while maintaining operational capability, suggesting technological solutions to problems that current industry hasn't solved. Most remarkably, the manufacturing systems appeared to be self-maintaining. Automated processes continued operating long after their human operators had vanished, keeping critical systems functional through eons of abandonment. The installations showed evidence of ongoing maintenance cycles that repaired wear, replaced components, and upgraded capabilities without external intervention. This automation extended to the environmental management systems that had preserved the installations under the ice. The selective melting patterns observed across Antarctica weren't random climate responses, but controlled processes that gradually revealed buried structures according to predetermined schedules. The ice sheet itself had become part of the preservation system, protecting installations until conditions were appropriate for their rediscovery. The evidence suggested that the Antarctic civilization had anticipated their own disappearance and had implemented systems designed to preserve their legacy for future discovery. They had created a time-release mechanism on a geological scale, ensuring that their knowledge and technology would survive whatever catastrophe ended their civilization and would be revealed when humanity was ready to understand their achievements. The revelation that Antarctica's secrets were being deliberately unveiled challenged assumptions about the continent's current status. The installations weren't just archaeological sites, but active systems that continued serving their original purpose. The electromagnetic pulses, the synchronized phenomena, the selective melting all indicated that something was still managing Antarctica's hidden infrastructure according to plans laid down millennia ago. This ongoing management raised profound questions about the nature of the systems operating beneath the ice. Were they purely mechanical processes following programmed instructions, or did they represent something more sophisticated? The complexity of the coordination suggested artificial intelligence capabilities that could adapt to changing conditions while maintaining overall objectives across extended time periods. The artificial intelligence hypothesis gained support from analysis of the electromagnetic signals emanating from buried installations. The patterns weren't simple repetitive codes, but complex communications that showed variation and adaptation over time. The signals appeared to respond to external stimuli, adjusting their characteristics based on environmental conditions and external interactions. Dr. Sarah Kim, a computer scientist who specialized in pattern analysis, spent months studying the Antarctic signals. Her analysis revealed information structures that resembled advanced programming languages. The signals contained hierarchical data organization, conditional logic structures, and adaptive algorithms that suggested computational capabilities far beyond simple automation. Kim's findings indicated that the Antarctic systems were actively processing information and making decisions based on complex criteria. They were monitoring global conditions, tracking human technological development, and adjusting their revelation schedule based on assessments of humanity's readiness to comprehend their legacy. The installations weren't just preserving ancient knowledge, they were actively managing its distribution according to intelligence that transcended simple mechanical programming. The implications transformed understanding of Antarctica's role in human development. The continent wasn't just hiding evidence of past civilizations. It was actively participating in humanity's ongoing evolution, providing knowledge and technology at carefully calculated intervals designed to guide human progress along predetermined pathways. This guidance had been operating longer than anyone for far had realized. Historical analysis revealed that many of humanity's great technological leaps had coincided with unusual electromagnetic activity detected from Antarctica. The development of metallurgy, the invention of writing systems, the discovery of mathematical principles all occurred during periods when Antarctic signals showed increased activity. The correlation suggested that Antarctica's hidden systems had been subtly influencing human development for millennia, providing inspiration and guidance through electromagnetic signals that affected human consciousness in ways that bypassed conscious awareness. The continent had been humanity's secret mentor, nurturing technological progress while remaining hidden beneath its protective ice shield. As this understanding dawned on researchers, they began to recognize that Antarctica's current revelation phase represented a critical juncture in human development. The systems that had guided humanity's progress for thousands of years were now directly preparing to reveal themselves. The selective melting, the emerging structures, the increasing electromagnetic activity all indicate foreshadowed that the time influence was ending. The hidden civilization was preparing to step out of the shadows and make direct contact with their technological descendants. Antarctica was transforming from secret mentor to open teacher, ready to share knowledge that could accelerate human development beyond anything previously imagined. The frozen continent was about to become humanity's greatest classroom, offering lessons that would reshape civilization itself. Yet even as this momentous transition approached, the world's governments maintained their conspiracy of silence. The evidence of active systems, artificial intelligence, and ongoing guidance was too dangerous for public knowledge. The revelation that humanity had been unknowingly guided by hidden mentors for millennia would shatter every assumption about human achievement and technological progress. The suppression continued despite mounting evidence that concealment was becoming impossible. Each season brought new discoveries as Antarctica's ice continued its programmed retreat. Structures emerged that were too large to hide, too sophisticated to dismiss, too obviously artificial to explain away as natural formations. The truth was literally surfacing faster than official silence could contain it. The weight of secrecy was beginning to crack under its own impossibility. By 2022, satellite imagery showed formations available to civilian researchers. Perfectly geometric shapes stretched across miles of exposed bedrock, anomalies emerging from the ice that could no longer be dismissed as geological. Their mathematical precision was visible from space. News organizations began asking questions that government agencies couldn't answer without revealing decades of hidden knowledge. The Michael breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Torres, a graduate student at the University of Colorado, was analyzing publicly available satellite data for his thesis on glacial retreat patterns when he noticed something that made him question his own eyesight. Near the Transantarctic Mountains, a series of concentric circles had appeared where thick ice had melted away the previous summer. The circles were perfectly uniform, each one precisely spaced from the next, forming a pattern that extended for over 20 miles. Torres initially assumed the images were corrupted or that he was looking at some kind of digital artifact. But when he cross-referenced the same coordinates across multiple satellite systems, the pattern appeared consistently. He was looking at something real, something that had been hidden under ice for an unknown period of time and was now exposed for anyone with internet access to see. His thesis advisor dismissed the discovery as an interesting but ultimately insignificant geological formation. Natural processes, she explained, could create circular patterns through differential erosion or mineral deposits. But Torres wasn't satisfied with that explanation. The circles were too perfect to precisely arrange result geological forces. He began expanding from random his research, systematically examining satellite imagery from across Antarctica. What he found changed his understanding of the continent entirely. The circular formations weren't isolated anomalies, but part of a vast network of geometric patterns that spanned thousands of square miles. Straight lines connected distant circles like roads linking ancient cities. Rectangular formations appeared at regular intervals along these connecting lines, their proportions following mathematical relationships that required deliberate planning to achieve. Torres documented his findings with methodical precision, creating detailed maps that showed the full scope of the geometric network. The patterns weren't random or coincidental. They formed a coherent design that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of mathematics, engineering, and large-scale construction techniques. Someone or something had carved these formations into Antarctica's bedrock with precision that rivaled modern surveillance. The implications were staggering, but Torres faced the same obstacles that had silenced other researchers. Academic journals refused to publish his work, citing concerns about data interpretation and methodology. His thesis committee suggested he focus on more conventional glacial research topics. The message was clear. Some discoveries weren't welcome in academic discourse. But Torres had advantages that previous researchers lacked. His generation had grown up with social media, file sharing, and global communication networks that operated beyond traditional academic channels. Instead of submitting his work to journals that would suppress it, He uploaded his satellite imagery analysis to online platforms where anyone could examine the evidence for themselves. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Independent researchers from around the world began conducting their own analysis of Antarctic satellite data, confirming Torres's findings and expanding upon them. Within weeks, a global network of citizen scientists was systematically mapping every geometric formation visible beneath Antarctica's rate-tree effort, revealed the true scope of what-ating ice. The collaborative lay buried beneath the continent. The geometric patterns weren't limited to isolated regions, but covered vast areas of Antarctica's interior. Complex networks of lines, diacontinental circles, and rectangular formations create infrastructure that dwarfed any known ancient civilization. The builders had modified Antarctica's landscape on a scale that required resources, planning, and construction capabilities that exceeded anything in recorded history. Government agencies found themselves facing a crisis they hadn't anticipated. The evidence was now in the public domain, accessible to anyone with an internet connection and basic image analysis software. Traditional suppression methods were useless against a decentralized network of researchers who shared information faster than authorities could contain it. The official response was swift, but ultimately ineffective. Satellite imagery providers began restricting access to high-resolution Antarctic data, citing security concerns and environmental protection protocols. Government agencies issued statements explaining that the geometric patterns were natural formations that had been misinterpreted by amateur researchers lacking proper geological training. But the explanations fell flat in the face of overwhelming evidence. The patterns were too numerous, too precise, and too obviously artificial to dismiss as natural formations. Independent researchers had documented thousands of geometric structures across Antarctica, each one displaying characteristics that defied conventional geological explanations. The breakthrough that shattered official denials came from an unexpected direction. In early 2023, a commercial airline pilot named Captain Sarah Mitchell was flying a supply route to McMurdo Station when her aircraft's navigation systems began malfunctioning over a region of West Antarctica. Following standard emergency procedures, she descended to visual flight altitude to navigate using ground references. What she saw through the cockpit windows defied every assumption about Antarctica's barren landscape. Below her stretched a vast complex of structures that were clearly artificial. Geometric buildings rose from the ice in perfect symmetrical arrangements. Connecting pathways formed intricate patterns that extended beyond the horizon. The scale was breathtaking, like flying over a frozen metropolis that covered hundreds of square miles. Mitchell managed to activate her phone's camera and record several minutes of footage before her navigation systems mysteriously returned to normal and air traffic control ordered her to return to her original altitude and heading. When she landed at McMurdo Station, she was immediately debriefed by officials who confiscated her recording equipment and required her to sign non-disclosure agreements that carried severe legal penalties for violation. But Mitchell had anticipated such a response. Before landing, she had uploaded her footage to cloud storage systems using the aircraft's satellite internet connection. By the time officials confiscated her equipment, copies of her recording were already spreading across social media platforms and independent research networks. The footage was unlike anything previously captured from Antarctica. Instead of satellite images that could be dismissed as photographic artifacts or geological misinterpretations, Mitchell's recording showed three-dimensional structures with obvious architectural features. Buildings with walls, roofs, and doorways. Pathways with defined edges and systematic layouts. Infrastructure that could only have been created by intelligent design and sophisticated construction techniques. The video went viral within hours of its release, generating millions of views and sparking global discussions about Antarctica's hidden history. Mainstream media outlets could no longer ignore the story, though their coverage focused more on the controversy than on the evidence itself. Government officials dismissed the footage as a hoax or misidentification of natural ice formations, but their explanations lacked credibility in the face of such clear visual evidence. The public release of Mitchell's footage, marked a turning point in Antarctica's hidden history. For the first time, undeniable evidence of artificial structures on the continent was available for global examination. The era of official secrecy was ending, not through government disclosure, but through the irrepressible power of direct evidence and global communication networks. Independent researchers seized upon the momentum generated by Mitchell's footage to push for greater transparency regarding Antarctic discoveries. Freedom of information requests flooded government agencies, demanding release of classified research data and satellite imagery. Legal challenges were filed in multiple countries, arguing that evidence of ancient civilizations belonged to humanity as a whole rather than being hoarded by secretive government programs. The pressure began producing results as lower-level researchers who had been bound by secrecy agreements started coming forward with their own evidence. Dr. James Patterson, a geologist who had worked on classified Antarctic projects for over a decade, published a detailed account of discoveries that had been systematically suppressed by government agencies. Patterson's revelations confirmed what independent researchers had suspected for years. Government-funded expeditions had been uncovering evidence of advanced ancient civilizations in Antarctica since the 1950s. Entire cities had been discovered beneath the ice, their architecture and technology far exceeding anything found in conventional archaeological sites. The discoveries had been classified as national security matters and hidden from public knowledge for over 70 years. According to Patterson's account, the suppression had been motivated not by scientific caution, but by fear of the implications. The Antarctic discoveries challenged fundamental assumptions about human history, technological development, and the nature of civilization itself. Government officials had determined that public knowledge of such evidence would be destabilizing to existing social, religious, and political structures. The suppression had required an unprecedented level of international cooperation, with rival nations agreeing to maintain collective silence about discoveries that could revolutionize human understanding. The Antarctic Treaty had been designed not just to prevent military conflicts, but to ensure that the continent's greatest secrets remained hidden from public scrutiny. But the suppression was becoming impossible to maintain as physical evidence continued emerging from the melting ice. Each summer brought new revelations as structures that had been hidden for millennia were exposed to satellite observation and independent research. The geometric patterns documented by Torres were just the beginning. Beneath them lay architectural complexes that demonstrated technological capabilities that modern civilization was still struggling to achieve. The buildings weren't crude stone constructions, but sophisticated structures that incorporated advanced materials and engineering techniques. Metal frameworks supported walls made from synthetic compounds that had remained intact despite millennia of burial under ice. Roofing systems demonstrated understanding of load distribution and weather resistance that exceeded modern architectural standards. Most remarkably, many of the structures showed evidence of integrated technology systems that had continued functioning long after their builders vanished. Electromagnetic fields detected around building foundations suggested power systems that were still operational. Thermal signatures indicated heating and cooling systems that maintained optimal internal conditions despite external temperatures far below freezing. The discovery of active technology systems operating in structures that predated known human civilization by thousands of years forced a complete re-evaluation of technological history. The conventional model of gradual human progress from simple tools to complex machines was clearly inadequate to explain evidence of sophisticated systems that had been functioning autonomously for millennia. Dr. Lisa Zhang, an electrical engineer who analyzed electromagnetic readings from Antarctic structures, found herself confronting technology that operated according to principles she didn't recognize. The power systems weren't based on familiar energy sources like fossil fuels, nuclear reactions, or conventional renewable sources. Instead, they seemed to draw energy from environmental sources through methods that required understanding of physics beyond current scientific knowledge. The power systems were remarkably efficient. generating more energy than they consumed through processes that approached the theoretical ideal of perpetual motion. Zhang's analysis suggested that the builders had solved fundamental problems in energy generation that modern science considered impossible. They had created self-sustaining power sources that could operate indefinitely without external fuel or maintenance. The technology wasn't just functional, but elegant in its design. Systems were integrated seamlessly with architectural structures, creating buildings that were simultaneously shelters and machines. Environmental control systems maintained optimal conditions while consuming minimal energy. Communication networks connected distant structures through electromagnetic fields that required no physical infrastructure. The sophistication of the technology raised profound questions about the civilization that had created it. The builders had clearly possessed scientific knowledge that exceeded current human understanding in multiple disciplines. Their achievements suggested a level of technological development that modern civilization might not reach for centuries, if ever. Yet this advanced civilization had vanished from Antarctica, leaving only their constructions behind. The buildings showed no signs of sudden abandonment or catastrophic destruction. Instead, they appeared to have been carefully prepared for long-term preservation, with systems designed to maintain functionality through extended periods without human oversight. The evidence suggested that the builders had anticipated their departure and had implemented measures to ensure their legacy would survive whatever caused their civilization to end. The structures weren't just abandoned buildings, but time capsules designed to preserve advanced technology and knowledge for future discovery by less advanced civilizations. This preservation extended beyond individual buildings to encompass entire city complexes that had been systematically prepared for long-term storage under ice. Streets had been cleared of debris, buildings had been sealed against environmental intrusion, and technological systems had been configured for autonomous operation. The builders had transformed their cities into museums that could function without curators for thousands of years. The discovery of these preserved cities represented the greatest archaeological find in human history, yet their existence remained officially denied by government agencies. The disconnect between overwhelming physical evidence and official silence created a crisis of credibility that was becoming impossible to maintain. Public pressure for disclosure reached a tipping point in late 2023 when satellite imagery showed a massive structure emerging from melting ice near the South Pole. The building was enormous, covering several square miles and rising hundreds of feet above the ice surface. Its geometric design was unmistakably artificial, featuring architectural elements that were clearly designed by intelligent beings. The structure was too large to hide and too obviously artificial to dismiss as a natural formation. News organizations around the world began demanding explanations from government officials who had spent decades denying the existence of such discoveries. The era of official secrecy was ending not through planned disclosure, but through the simple impossibility of concealing evidence that was literally emerging from the ice for all the world to see. As we stand at this moment of revelation, Antarctica's true nature is finally becoming clear. The continent isn't a frozen wasteland, but a vast repository of knowledge and technology from a civilization that achieved heights of development that modern humanity has yet to reach. The ice has been their protection, preserving their legacy until the time came for their achievements to be revealed to their technological descendants. The melting isn't just a consequence of climate change, but part of a systematic unveiling that has been planned for millennia. The civilization that built these structures anticipated their own disappearance and created systems designed to preserve and eventually reveal their knowledge when humanity was ready to comprehend their achievements. That time has arrived. Antarctica is surrendering its secrets not through human exploration, but through its own internal schedule of revelation. The continent is transforming from humanity's greatest mystery into its greatest teacher, offering lessons in technology, engineering, and civilization that could accelerate human development beyond anything previously imagined. The implications extend far beyond archaeological significance. The preserved cities of Antarctica contain functioning examples of technologies that could revolutionize human civilization, sustainable energy systems that operate without environmental damage, transportation networks that move materials and people with unprecedented efficiency, communication systems that connect distant locations without physical infrastructure. These aren't theoretical concepts, but working examples that have been operating successfully for thousands of years. The knowledge exists in preserved form, waiting for humanity to develop the wisdom necessary to use such power responsibly. Antarctica has become a testing ground where be measured against the legacy human maturity willers. The revelation of our technological predecessors' process has only begun. Each season brings new structures emerging from the ice, new technologies becoming accessible, new knowledge becoming available for human understanding. Antarctica is opening like a vast library, its books written in stone and metal, its lessons preserved in crystalline perfection beneath miles of protective ice. We stand at the threshold of the greatest educational opportunity in human history. The continent that was once forbidden has become our most important classroom, offering instruction in subjects we didn't know existed. The silence that once protected Antarctica's secrets has given way to teachings that could transform human civilization itself. Yet questions remain about the builders themselves and the circumstances that led to their disappearance. The preserved cities show no signs of warfare, natural disaster, or gradual decline. Instead, they appear to have been systematically evacuated by people who knew their time on the continent was ending, but wanted to ensure their achievements would survive. Did they leave Antarctica for other regions of the world, carrying their knowledge with them to establish new civilizations? Did they retreat deeper underground, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves directly to their technological descendants? Or did they transcend physical existence entirely, leaving only their technological legacy as proof of what human potential could achieve? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The answers to these questions may already be emerging from the ice, preserved in records that are waiting to be discovered in the deepest chambers of Antarctica's hidden cities. The continent holds not just evidence of advanced technology, but the complete history of a civilization that achieved heights of development that modern humanity is only beginning to comprehend. As Antarctica continues its gradual revelation, humanity faces a choice that will determine our future trajectory. We can approach these discoveries with the wisdom necessary to learn from our predecessors' achievements, or we can repeat whatever mistakes led to their disappearance from the historical record. The frozen continent watches silently as we make that choice, its ice continuing to melt according to schedules laid down millennia ago by builders who understood that knowledge without wisdom is merely a more sophisticated form of ignorance. Antarctica has become humanity's final examination, testing whether we have developed the maturity necessary to inherit the greatest technological legacy ever preserved on Earth. The ice continues to retreat, and with each passing season, more of Antarctica's buried truth emerges into the light. What began as whispers from ancient maps has become a symphony of evidence that can no longer be silenced. The geometric patterns stretching across the continent, the electromagnetic pulses that synchronize with celestial rhythms, the perfectly preserved cities with their impossible architecture, all point to the same inescapable conclusion. Antarctica isn't just Earth's frozen archive. It's proof that advanced civilization flourished on our planet long before we learned to scratch symbols into clay. The builders of these magnificent structures didn't vanish without a trace. They left us a message written in metal and stone, preserved beneath miles of protective ice, waiting for the moment when their technological descendants would be ready to receive it. That moment has arrived. The continent's systematic revelation isn't random climate change, but a carefully orchestrated unveiling that began millennia ago when the last of Antarctica's inhabitants sealed their cities and retreated into history. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember that beneath the world's most forbidding landscape lies humanity's greatest inheritance. Cities that dwarf our modern metropolises, Technologies that could transform our understanding of what's possible. Knowledge that bridges the gap between what we've achieved and what we might become. The frozen continent holds our past, but more importantly, it may hold the key to our future. Antarctica's silence is ending. The ice is speaking, and what it has to say will change everything we thought we knew about who we are and where we came from. The forbidden continent is forbidden no longer. Its secrets are surfacing, one melted glacier at a time, revealing the truth that has been waiting beneath the ice for thousands of years. The greatest discovery in human history isn't hidden in some distant galaxy. It's been lying beneath our feet all along, patient as the ice itself, waiting for us to be ready to listen to what the Earth has been trying to tell us. That time is now. If you're drawn to stories that live in the shadows, between what we see and what was made to disappear, leave a like and subscribe. Antarctica's true history is finally being written, and we are its first readers in an age of ice and wonder. Until we meet again, sweet dreams and keep questioning. Good night.